Not too bad. No.
It's all junk, dude. It's all junk.
It's clothes. You can't even look
Yeah,
at
dude.
clothes.
I don't wear clothes, dude. What's wrong
Glowing
with you?
mask though for enchanters.
It's
That's
actually for the wizard.
But
yeah, it's
enchanter can wear
the
it.
soul row thing.
Gotta have an enchanter out there that can wear it.
I'll take the blood, dude. I'll take the frog blood. You know what I mean?
You make some sandwiches?
Mhm.
Some stew?
All right, I'll probably leave after this mob, man. I gotta go.
All right. You gonna be back
It's
later
gonna
tonight?
Depends on how long. Have you ever seen? I'm sure you've seen Lord of the Rings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen like when the two hobbits go with the trees and everything we do takes a long time?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
We just said it. We just did our introduction.
That's pretty much that meeting. So
Well, then take some bubblegum with you and an MP3 player or something, and pass a little bit of time. But I think you're gonna have fun there, dude. I think if that's the first time you've ever been, it's a new experience. You're gonna enjoy. Maybe.
no, this is like my fourth meeting, dude.
Oh.
All right, I'm getting. It's like my fourth meeting, so it works. I mean, it's kind of doing my duty a little bit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Duty. So, but anyway, I may or may not be back if it's a quick meeting. Usually they're at least a couple hours though. So, blah.
Try to have a little bit of fun there.
Talk to you guys later. See you.
All right.
All right, sir.
I just remember those days, and yeah, I could not do that. Kudos to those who enjoy it. Again, not every raid that you're going to go on is going to be looking at a wall. There definitely are those as far as like TOV goes, because you have to stay outside the range of the dragons, the area effect that they have. So hiding behind a wall is a tactic they can do.
And it's more names than anything else. Like Vindy, you have to be either against the wall on one side while the tank is tanking on the other side, or then you have the absolutely mess of a zone like Fear where everybody is just healing everybody and you're just raid rezzing everybody so you can get the mob dead.
Yeah.
It's total mayhem.
But Cypher,
I mean, you may be a cleric and never be in a group at all in Fear. I mean,
Cypher just got burned out mainly on the way the Sea Hill was being run in the certain guild that he was going through. It was very uncoordinated. People would not call each other out. And
every raid that we went to was with an alliance of 3 guilds, and every person in every guild who played a cleric, and some people who didn't play clerics but they were playing their guild cleric, would have their own way of doing things. And sometimes it was that they wouldn't even tell you it was your turn. They would just say 111 sea healing, and that's it. They wouldn't say who's next, or they wouldn't have in the macro at all. Sometimes you had to count, which wasn't really a problem because anyway, whenever I'm healing, I actually watched someone's health bar as my bar going across, and if my spell bar gets ahead of their health bar dropping, then I know that they're gonna live. But you sometimes you wouldn't sure to heal because of the fact that they're not telling you that you're trying to heal. Every macro that I had for complete heal chain was I'm casting. This is my pause timer that we all agreed on, and then this is it's your turn to heal. Blah blah blah. Name 2222 or whatever it is.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think you should hold the Sea Hill rotation chain or your cleric out of raids because of that one experience. That again, it was just very poorly
not
run.
One experience. It was,
one experience
a lot of times
with that guild.
Oh, it's not only that guild though. I've been to Friday night open raids on my cleric, and it's just mind numbing.
Open raids, man. Again,
it's
go with a professional guild that groups together, that raids together a lot, and you're gonna find that it is very coordinated, or should, if they're gonna be hitting hard targets.
Yeah,
it's gonna be very coordinated.
Either way, I'm done with a cleric as a gilded class.
Okay. You gotta do you on
I'll
that one.
duo. I have fun duoing. I'm not only having fun, but I'm making money, and that's why I'm able to have 30 or 40K worth of gear on this character.
I have
Which
fun.
is
I actually have fun in a Sea Hill rotation. I'm too busy talking most of the time on my streams to really be that good at it. But if I wasn't streaming and I was just recording, this guy's not going to talk. Then I probably would be a lot better like I used to be in the old days. But
yeah,
it's nice and relaxing, to be honest. Like, you just kind of sit there and heal.
It's hard for us to even pay attention to what's going on in the group. Like, he's talking this whole time. I haven't seen the thing he said.
Right. Let's see. TOV. In TOV, I'd get shrunk and then stand with my face in the wall so I could see the action. That way you can start the chain right when you tank engages. That's cool. That means you can be behind, you can be protected, but you can still see what's going on. That's the way to do it. Because the wall does make it very, very boring. And it's not like it was, as I said, in the old days where you really, really needed that low aggro, or not low aggro, low processing, which is why we would stare at the wall or the floor when you walked into, like, the bazaar and you just couldn't even move any other way.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Hey man, thank you for the
when the
cheers,
bazaar
man.
came out,
That.
dude, that was the worst whenever that came out.
It was dreadful, man. Like, the comments worked. It wasn't like a system that needed an overhaul, although when they first mentioned it, it sounded amazing, right? I was all for the bazaar.
Yeah. But the thing is that for some reason, going from this massive zone that had all these people in it to a zone that was 1/3 the size and had probably, well, it mainly was because of the fact that people were keeping the characters online and were able to sell while they were asleep. So you had these hundreds upon hundreds of people in one zone sleeping while they were selling their stuff, and I guess that was the reason that it was overrun.
There was a little bit
because normally
wasabi gas.
Well,
I like that actually. I mean, they decided to put like a PvP arena inside the bazaar as well. Like, they put other stuff in there, and if you're gonna have that much lag, which apparently they did not assume that was going to be that bad for so many players. You know, again, they always test it on, like, the best computers. Nowadays, I know they test it on all sorts of different ones. Yeah, they don't just assume that you're going to be playing on a high-end rig. But for those of us who were playing on just, like, barely optimal kind of thing, it was rough.
Well, I mean, if you think about how we do it here, or any time back in those days, people use EC whenever they either had time or were not able to find a group. They would LFG and they would try to buy and sell there. Where when the bazaar came out, there was a static amount of people that were just standing as close to each other as they could, trying to sell their wares.
I think it needed to be optimized a little bit more. I think they needed to find a way to turn you into an actual NPC in the sense that you're no longer eating up a lot of the bandwidth that you're eating up with. Like, they could do that in the programming. It would take a lot of sitting there trying to figure that out to make sure the processing isn't eating up the RAM or the
later on they did resolve it though, because what they ended up doing is they added a button. No, they added a button at the bottom of the bazaar window that hid everyone that wasn't the person that you were going to buy from, and that cleaned up a lot of the lag.
Yeah, but
like that was the first thing. Whenever I got into the zone, I would turn everybody off.
I mean, I get where you're coming from. Like, you have to do that to go into that zone, otherwise it's lag city. But you lose the ambiance. One of the greatest things about playing an MMO, for me anyways, again, it may not be for everybody, but for me, is seeing the other players, interacting with the other players, running by somebody randomly in a zone and seeing them, you know, with a really cool shield or an amazing weapon that's glowing and or a mount, and you're just like, where did you get that? Or seeing them in trouble and running over there and giving them a heal and coming to their aid, or vice versa. Like, it's
Yeah.
interactive, you know. But if you just get rid of everybody and you walk into a zone that's a bank or a bazaar in this case, you lose the ambiance
Well,
of seeing all those people lined up and all the people running back and forth and buying gear and putting it on, and like, just, it's more interactive with more players.
You're not hiding the people that aren't merchants. You're only hiding the people who are merchants, and most of those people that are merchants are alts that have no gear on them.
I mean, you could do it that way. I just think you lose something when you start hiding people. It's obviously a fix. It's not a great fix, though.
But you lose that by even having a bazaar at all, though. I mean, that's the whole thing that's really nice about the EC tunnel now, is that we have that experience back where you see people walking around. I saw an Aftermath Shadow Knight today, and I was asking him about his gear, if he had like the 55 AC shield, and just talked to him about the equipment he had, how much hit points he could get up to with boss. It was like 5,300 hit points. I'm like, Shadow Knight? that's pretty awesome that you're able to do that.
Heck yeah, man! Anything over 5,000.
Yeah, well, I mean, his base hit points without buffs was at like 3,800 hit points. That's a lot of hit points for a Shadow Knight compared to, say, a Warrior. Warriors, they're probably in the same category, probably around 4 or 5K buffed. I really don't know what they're at.
It depends on what they put their points into. I put my points into dexterity, because dexterity is a lot harder to get than stamina and strength on gear. So my base would be a little bit lower than, say, the standard ogre warrior or any other of the warriors out there. But in the end, I think dexterity is the better choice.
It really doesn't matter once you get to that kind of gear. I mean, you're talking about people who are in the 200 to 250 range with the kind of gear that they're wearing.
Yeah, but you said base. I just assumed that was without gear on.
No. I mean base with gear. I mean, he doesn't have 3K hit points without gear. No. He has 12 or 1,300
that's
maybe.
What I was saying, you know, like 3K without gear, that's pretty freaking amazing. So he's doing something right. But the filter for finding items for your class race was game changing. That's Notch saying that for the Bazaar. Bazaar equal no haggling over prices. That's another downside if you like doing that, or I like trading. Personally, I like having an item like an FBSS or, you know, any of the items that you might get into a game and be like, I'll trade you this item plus 1K, or I'll trade you this item and you give me the item I'm looking for plus, you know, 10K. It made things a little bit easier, so you didn't have to sell your item first. Like, you know, money wasn't the end all be all. Sometimes the item was better, because some items were just like hot commodities, like a fungi tunic on P99. No matter who you are, if you get a fungi tunic, you may have to wait a couple of days, maybe a week, if you're trying to sell it at like the high-end version of the price. But if you're not really, you know, hurting for money and you don't mind selling it for like 5K lower than it's worth, you'll sell that thing almost immediately. Or you could trade it almost to anybody, because everybody else knows that they could sell that thing for almost immediately as well.
I mean, I've had people who've inspected me and asked me straight up for gear that I have equipped.
To buy it?
To buy it or trade for it. Like, I think my enchanter had, I was buying a ring or something, and I ended up getting it. And this guy straight up asked me, I'll trade you this 12K robe for it. I was like, no, I got the ring for a reason. I don't want that robe. I have better.
Right.
Or whatever it was. Or at least better for the class.
Everquest,
I was putting it on.
Everquest 2 went one step further than the Bazaar. I think maybe the Bazaar works a little different on live now. I don't know. I haven't been there in a while. But the way it worked on Everquest 2 is it was a worldwide market. So I would go on there and I would set an item. Where did that mob go? He just disappeared. But yeah, I would set an item for sale. There would be a small broker fee. when somebody bought that item, and it would be based off of where they were and where I was selling the item from. So if I was, say, in Freeport selling an item and they were all the way over in Kinos, they would pay a bigger brokerage fee because it's further away. Or they always had the option to travel to my room.
To your home.
Yeah. And buy it directly from me, which could cut out the broker fee altogether, but it would take more time. And as they came out with more and more fast travel, the time was really not all that much. And when you were buying big items, it was actually kind of worth it. So
it also depended on where your house was versus, say, where the guards were, because
evil,
there were. Yeah, I mean, Necromancer, even as strong as my Necromancer was, the way I had him set up, I still couldn't get to my own guild hall. I had someone who helped me get to my guild hall by diverting the guards so that I could get that little token thing that allowed me to gate back to the guild hall. And then I would gate to my home to get out of there, or I'd use one of those teleports that they had in guild halls.
Well, you know, in an effort to make the game easier for everybody, they went ahead and started making zones that you could have houses in that were neutral. But I kind of like the over, like, you know, an open bazaar that's not really a physical place. It's more of like a message board where you're leaving, I have this item and I want to sell it. It's kind of a nice little twist onto it, but it didn't have that haggle. It didn't have, like, I could write that guy a letter and say, I'll trade you this item or that item. And it was always about who could undercut the other person by, like, a silver or a copper. Because your name would come up on the list first if your item was cheapest. So everybody would undercut each other, you know, every couple of hours. You'd go back on there and check, and it would be 1 copper cheaper. You do the same thing, and it would just keep driving the price down to the point.
Or if you wanted to really just sell that item, you could drop it by a big amount. And then there was people who put items that, like, there was only one of them, and they'd put it on there for like 20K, and the thing was probably only worth maybe 1 platinum, if that.
Yeah. It's just
and
crazy.
People accidentally would buy those kind of things just because of the fact that they weren't paying attention.
Well, if you're going to spend 20K, hopefully you're paying attention. Otherwise, you kind of deserve to lose your money.
Sure.
Nothing beats the East Combat tunnels. So I'm kind of curious to see how they do it in Pantheon. They haven't mentioned anything in any of the videos I've watched about how the trading in that game will work. They did say that they wanted to make sure that there was a healthy low-level trading and a healthy high-level trading, in the sense that some of the items that you will need to do even high-level stuff is going to come from low-level mobs. So there's always going to be a need for, like, bone chips or, you know, cloths from mummies. So low levels can still trade to higher levels. Higher levels will still be coming to the lower level zones, in a sense, maybe, to get those if they don't have a bazaar of some sort.
Yeah, I hope that they don't have a bazaar, to be honest. I really do like the trading between individuals, and you can decide if you want to sell to someone because of the fact that they're just not wanting to come down on the price or not.
Well, you know, it also kind of brings people together in the sense that it makes people actually communicate with somebody else. Again, we're all, or I should just speak for myself, but most of us are very, very lazy. And if we can do something by ourselves, we tend not to go out of our way to talk to somebody else. I know you look at, like, World of Warcraft, great game, but it does tend to be very solo a lot of the way up until you get to the dungeons. And even the dungeons, you can run those without really even communicating with anybody else. So I like it when they force you to talk to one another. Well, I got dotted like crazy. And Tara has told me to reinvite her like twice for regen, and I haven't been paying attention. So we'll get her back in here as soon as possible. Let me go ahead and toss her an invite now. I'm blind, so I can't see anything.
Yep.
Now, do you have an idea of any of the trade skills that they got in the game for Pantheon, or anything that they have planned coming up?
They haven't talked about it, but there's probably going to be blacksmithing, that kind of stuff.
Did they
but
go traditional?
I don't know how they're going to go about it. Are they going to have homes? Are they not? I mean,
How do you,
that really defines what kind of crafting that they're going to have.
how do you like homes in video games? EverQuest 2 had the houses.
Honestly don't like them.
Neither do I. They've never done
I mean,
it right.
it's not like you could sit in the chairs that you placed in EverQuest 2. Is all just a visible thing.
You could in World of Warcraft.
You really couldn't touch or do anything with.
World of Warcraft, not only the houses that you put down, but like any of the taverns that you could go into, you could sit down at the tables or the chairs, and you know, you could actually interact. I think there was one where you could like dance. I think that might have been Star Wars Online that did that as well.
Yeah.
But I've never really felt like the house had a place in the world. It's always an instant that kind of takes you to your house versus somebody else's. And if they ever do where they have only so many houses and you have to compete for it, then most of the players on the server never get to have a house. It's only like the hardcore extreme players that can afford to buy it the moment it comes out on the market for like a ridiculous amount of price. Do you know like a middle ground? Have you ever seen it in any video game, whether it's like new or old, that did it well?
You mean as far as houses?
Yeah, like it made it where it actually felt like it was part of the game and not just kind of a tack on after the fact.
Well, there was in DAOC, whenever they did houses there, you could put your, like, say if you were a master tailor, you could put a merchant in your house that sold the tailoring supplies, and you could put a tailoring bench in your house so that you could tailor. You had chests in your house that you could store equipment in, and then if you had killed like a dragon or a certain mob, you could go to a certain crafter and they could make heads to mount in your house, that kind of thing. You also on the outside had a merchant that sold for you, so instead of having to be online to sell your stuff, people could go to a main bazaar kind of thing, search for the kind of items that they're looking for, and they could actually take a horse to your house and buy it directly from you. Or you could pay more and buy it right there at the bazaar merchant.
That sounds exactly how it was, or not exactly, but pretty close to what it was in EverQuest 2. But where was the house? Was it in an instant that everybody else's house was at?
Well, you had to buy land, and you had to find land in the spawn.
Oh, so you did have only so many houses in the game available because of the land.
Yeah.
Was finite. Okay, so that's.
But it ended up being like
enough. There's enough land to go around.
Thousands upon thousands of houses. Some people only use their guild hall.
So was it a like a neighborhood of housing where as you go through that area it was just house after house after house, or was it mixed in with different areas of the countryside?
No, I mean a lot of times we actually had like for our guild, if you wanted to buy a house, a lot of times your whole guild would buy houses around your guild hall. So you on the outside of your house, you got to put a banner that represented your guild.
Oh, I get that. I'm just
so
saying,
you'd have sections that were just your guild members' houses.
Where were they located in the sense of the world, though? Like, were you in the middle of a dungeon? Were you out in the middle of a field?
No.
It's like, where were you?
No, you actually had a place that was housing, but whenever you went into that area, it was just a massive landscape. Some areas were desert, some were
but that's all they had was
grassland.
Housing in that area.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I've seen in other video games do it, but there's no real reason to go in there and explore or see those houses because that's all that's there, other than to get to your own. I would love to see it if they had done it like Skyrim, where as you run through the countryside, you could pretty much have a house anywhere. If you guys ever played any of those download
yeah, but then I wouldn't want to have to deal with it being overcrowded of houses. I mean,
that's the trick. I've never seen it done right either.
I mean, in Skyrim, for a single player based game, it was done perfectly because you could have a town, you could have an apartment in a house in a town, or you could build your own house, or you could have up to 3 houses that you could build, and each one was used for separate things.
That would be cool. You know, like in the High Elf City, you could get like an apartment if they made the buildings big enough. You know, I just don't want it to feel like there's too many, but I also don't want to feel like there's too few of them. You know, and then throw it in like different areas out in the wild as well, so that you can have like a country abode. And if they did enough of them, like thousands of places for houses, and then enough area over the entire continent, you would just naturally run into people's houses as you explored the game, which is kind of cool. It's more like Mass Effect.
There was one game that I did play that had that, but the whole game was based around PvP. So you may log in one day and your house is completely gone.
Right.
Because they raided your house, they took all of your stuff, and I mean, the only safe place in that game was in a town. There was a vault cube, and you would store like your most valuable stuff in it. If you were stupid enough to put that stuff in your house, I mean, you were literally opening yourself up to lose anything in that game.
Again, that's the key is, if you have a community that's not active, how do you get rid of those people and make the housing available for new people coming in? And, you know, how do you make it where it's not overcrowded and, you know, et cetera, upon that idea?
Well, the way they did it is that
without PvP.
A lot of times, well, no, the way they did it is a lot of times a guild would set up a housing, which then meant you had the protection of the walls that they would build around it. And then they would usually have people that were on shifts to keep a lookout for people coming to try to raid them.
Now you're getting into EverQuest Next territory, and EverQuest Next did not work out because I think they said they bit off more than they could chew, and it was going to be a little bit more than the servers could handle, more than the programming could handle, making the world.
Well, that's because they were going with a absolutely insane idea of there not just being a world, but worlds upon worlds or land upon land, and I mean that alone sounds like it'd be hard to achieve for even a single player game.
Oh yeah, but it sounded amazing. It sounded like if they could get
it sounded awesome.
Because you were able in that game do exactly what you're talking about. You could build a fort, you could build a castle, you could build the walls, you could protect them with catapults, and there would be other people who came in there to try to tear them down. So things would change all the time, and you'd be able to dig underneath the moat. And
I wish I could find video of that game. I think it's called it's Dark Light, I think, or something like that. They've completely changed their name now. But the game was amazing. They had ship-to-ship battles. So a lot of guilds would build near water so that they could make a port. The buildings that you made were just really coolly constructed. The way that you leveled in that game was every time you use a spell or every time you swung your swords, you got skill. And once you got to a certain skill, you would get a new ability for that skill. For me, I only crafted and only harvested, and that was something that guilds wanted. So I got in a really big guild pretty early on.
That's exactly what I was going to touch on. Is I like the fact that they were incorporating people in there of different backgrounds, basically, because there are people who only play building games. Me and you are playing one right now, the Valnir Roke, where there's combat involved into it, but mainly, to be honest, like 90% of the game seems to be for us going out collecting resources and then building with those resources.
Right, and then
like docks and all that other stuff you were talking about.
A lot of the time, even if we are going to go out fighting, we have to prepare to go fighting because we got to make arrows, we got to repair our equipment. You need to make sure you bring equipment with you to be able to repair your equipment. A lot of times you're traveling and you're overweight because of the fact that you're constantly making arrows while you're traveling. I mean,
now that one's a little hardcore if you're going to go to the extent of an MMO. Because it is low on the weight scale. You can't really hold a lot. You do have to spend a lot of time preparing for a very short run into a dungeon. So if they're going to incorporate that method into an MMO, they would have to do a little bit more balancing act on that, so that combat isn't more of like a secondary thought. But I would love to see more MMOs incorporate that building aspect. Now, I do understand there's not a lot of people that may enjoy that, but there are, for me, a lot of people that I have found that do enjoy that, especially like on Everquest 2. You didn't get to build too much unless you went into furniture making, but you did get to decorate a lot. There were so many different competitions where you got to go watch and see other people's housing, and they had done amazing jobs with the materials you wouldn't think that you could use in the way that they used them. People created fish tanks out of picture frames. They created, works of art out of like combination of different objects just by resizing them and putting like half of it through a wall and the other half showing, and all the different techniques that you could use with it. I would love to see them do more of that, especially when you gave people, because then you could have, like you said, just people that they don't really play it for combat. They may be playing with their husband, they may be playing with their wife, their kids, and they just kind of go in there and they build. It's very friendly, family oriented, and they don't have to see like the destructive side of the game maybe as much.
Yeah. I mean, one game I'd like to play that I watch a lot of videos on is Rust. I think that would be a pretty fun game to try out. Though it's very not PG, and it's very Conan-esque in the fact that you're naked.
They don't have dogs out in that one, though, I don't think, right?
Well, they're blurred out, but yes, they do.
Conan didn't blur anything out.
No, that depended on what server you were on.
Oh, did it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. I'd never looked at like the
as a server setting.
They always had them out on mine. See, hey Sick Dick, how you doing, man? G-Spock says Star Wars Galaxy had a reason to build houses. Oh
yeah, that's true.
I think I got that far. What was the reason to build houses in Star Wars?
You could use your house as a merchant house. You could sell wares. You could even craft in your house, depending on what kind of crafter you were.
It seems to be a common theme. Use your house as a merchant selling place or crafting or both.
But I mean, the cool thing about the Star Wars Galaxy houses is that you'd be out probably harvesting or farming something, and then you'd run across a person's house, and it was and they had things that you hadn't seen before in other parts of the universe. I mean, depending on what when you started playing.
See, I like that though, that you randomly came across their house while you're out in the world.
Yes,
that is how the housing should be.
I mean, that was
live, more realistic.
I got pretty well known as being an armor smith, just because of the kind and quality of armor that I made.
Mayfield says UO had houses that deteriorated, allowing for people to loot. I'm kind of torn on the housing being needing of repair every so often.
Like ours on Valdenrock.
Yeah, because
it's probably decayed by now because we haven't
logged in like
played it a few days.
4 or 5 days or something. But yeah, because it kind of forces you to log in when you don't really feel like playing, and EverQuest 2 kind of ruined that for me in the sense that they started putting out daily quest, and at the time I thought daily quest was okay. It just kind of got me more interested in the game for a little bit. I could go ahead and log in before work, do a few quests here and there, but there's something about absence of a game. EverQuest, you go through these stages where you may play for a good couple weeks, couple months, even longer.
Invite Pokem. That's Shix.
Oh, nice. Yeah, welcome, Shix. If you want to sit on the call, same thing for you, Tara. If you guys want in on the call, let us know. We'll throw you in here. But yeah, something about being gone from the game for a while and then getting that desire to come back to it.
Yeah,
like it builds up. With you.
mean,
it's like I want to go play that game.
Like the other day, we went back and our boxes were gone that we had been storing things in since we began. And we lost a ton of things because some of those boxes didn't have the bag just on the ground. They had completely poofed.
Yeah, but if you make me log in like that, at some point I'm just like I don't really feel like playing it, and you're forcing me to go in there. Like it's gonna give me a bad taste at some point. So Maybe if you make it long enough. EverQuest 2 had it where you had to pay your upkeep on your house. Again, it's an instant where everybody's houses was in the same door. And if you didn't pay your upkeep, you just couldn't get into your house next time you logged in without paying for it. So there's really no downside. You didn't lose all the stuff on the inside. None of your friends could get into your house until you paid your upkeep. None of your guildies could get in there if you gave them access. But beyond that, like, there wasn't really a big downside to it. So, again, not really not really a penalty in any way other than they just kind of want to take more money out of the game. So the inflation rate maybe was kind of held under check. It didn't really work.
Yeah.
You rode a horse to a new zone in DAOC. How do you feel about mounts? Are you a big fan?
I don't know. I mean, I purposely Skyrim, the horses were the worst thing in that game because you'd buy this horse, you take the time to spend this money to get this horse, and the first time you fall off of a thing or the first time you get attacked by a bear, the horse is trying to fight the bear and he dies, and you just wasted 2,000 gold on it. But I like to, I used mods specifically to stop me from fast traveling. So I liked walking through the game. I like walking through EverQuest because it just gives me that ability to see things that I may have never seen. And as big as Pantheon's going to be, I mean, we haven't seen a map or anything. I'm expecting it's going to be pretty big. So they're probably going to add mounts. And it really just, I could really care less, to be honest. I am not one of the people that likes mounts for the fact of there being mounts.
I like medium. I like medium transport, fast travel kind of thing. I like hot air balloons. They get you through the zone a little bit faster, but you get to see a different view. It may take you the long way, so it may not be like a lot faster. You may only shave off a few minutes here and there. But it's more realistic, you know. It feels like there's infrastructure in the game, and they did that in one of the zones in EverQuest 2. They had the hot air balloons, and it was just really cool, dude. When it first came out, it was the first flying that you ever got to do in that game, and I don't know. I had a lot of fun just kind of peering over the edge and looking below. It reminded me of going to like an amusement park and riding those little trolleys that they have up there, and the horses I didn't really care for. They always moved kind of wonky in EverQuest 2, and they were really, really fast, and they couldn't get attacked. That was another thing. There was no threat, and I think any fast travel should have a threat. Maybe even go to the extent of like Final Fantasy threat, where your fast travel occasionally gets attacked by pirates. You know, because they had those air travel systems in those too. And you know, everybody would have to band together to fight it. It could be based off of like average level wise, so lower level people would really get kind of hosed on that one, or something. I don't know, like a kraken that everybody has to start attacking the tentacles, and you know, something that everybody could participate in and feel like the fast travel is still somewhat dangerous, yet still a little exciting at the same time, like the boats in an EverQuest. There's no danger to it, but occasionally when you pull up to some of the docks in OT, there are guards there that may not like you. So you gotta be hesitant, right? You gotta stay a little further away from the sides than you may otherwise. Everything's not neutral in this game.
Yeah.
Let's see. I would just make you build everything for me, AZ. I do not mind building, but if you want a builder, Srcyer is the guy to go to, man. Most of the games that we play together, he is the one building the bases. I'm going out and getting the resources and jumping off cliffs and getting eaten by dragons. He's building the stuff that I bring back, which is kind of cool.
I think if you take any game and a builder is required versus, say, a gatherer, I would always rather be the builder than the gatherer.
I like both ways.
So that said, I don't mind gathering and building at the same time, just because I like things being rare, and if you have to go out and fight for that one rare item to be able to make that one rare sword that's going to make you or your guild or your friends better, that's the kind of crafter I like to be.
Now, would you like to see a game where when you craft, your hit points and like your level goes up, like a main level, not just your crafting level, but your actual level? That way, you could do crafting all the time, and you would level up with your friends. And then when you went out to fight, maybe your one-handed slashing wouldn't be as good, but you'd still be able to compete with everybody else. You'd still be able to hang with all your guys.
I think that would be pretty cool, but I think it would have to be its own craft, its own class, and that it has its own abilities, like being able to craft, say, turrets or things like that. That you're more of a utility class that builds like palisades or walls that archers can shoot over, so the archers aren't getting hit by melee until the melee break down those walls or something like that.
I don't know if I would like that, because then you're making that class useful in its own right. Where it could just be simply you like making weapons for the fighters, and so you're in the back, and yeah, you can augment their damage a little bit because you're a blacksmith. You can, you're hitting with a hammer most likely because that's your weapon of your skill, but you're not as useful as a warrior. But you can still go out there with them, and there may be stuff that you have to be there for to harvest. I'm thinking of like Sword Art Online kind of storyline to go with that.
That's kind of one of the things that you had to do in Star Wars Galaxies to make Mandalorian armor. You had to travel with your guild, and then once you got there, your guild had to protect you while you made the Mandalorian armor.
But you had to be both in that one. You had to have your normal level, and then you also had to have your trade skill, right?
Nope, not me. I was only a trade skiller.
Really? So you're like a level 1 whatever, and everything else was trade skill.
I was a max trade skill. I did no fighting at all ever.
Oh, see, then
I never even carried a weapon on me.
That's what I'm talking about right there. That's what I want to see. I want to see trade skills becoming a class of their own that you bring along with you for some good reason. And hopefully it'd be more than just, oh, this is the best, armor in the game. We only need them for this one spot. I'd like to see progression of that, levels as you go through the game, places that you want to take that guy so that he can level naturally rather than trying to do it all on his own, very boring and just kind of sitting in a corner making the same item again and again. Hey guys, and welcome to the disembodied voice of AC Gamer. We are definitely going to be doing a lot more series in the future, but here are a few of them that you guys might find interesting. Of course, you're more than welcome to check them out. I would love to hear your comments. Again, if you do enjoy these videos, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe. It's definitely the indicator that I use to tell if you guys want to see more videos like that, of that particular game style, of that series in the long run. So when you guys leave comments down, it helps me decide whether we should keep doing it, as well as whether you want to see games like that in the future. And here are a few of them right here. I kind of picked out a few of different genres. We will be doing spotlights for other YouTubers in the future. So if you want to get a little shout out, definitely let me know. If you group with me, chances are you will get a shout out in here eventually. But for now, these are just 4 series that I have that I feel like could use a little bit more attention and that you guys might actually enjoy as well. Thanks again for watching, guys, and we will definitely catch you all next time.